All right, welcome back. Let's look at the now you try problem on determining if a table of values is a function or not, and if we look at it as x is the inputs, y is the outputs, is that a function? And then switching it up and saying, what if we look at it the other way with y is the inputs and x is the outputs? So here we have a table that completely defines a relationship between x and y. We have x is -4, and that corresponds to y being -8. Then we have x as -3, which corresponds to y being 4. Then we have x being -2, corresponding to y being -14. Then we have x being -3, corresponding to y being 19. Then we have x being -1, corresponding to y being 0. So if we think of this as y of x, we see that this is not a function. And our reasoning here is because since x equals -3 corresponds to two different y values, right? So if we think of x as the input, then the input of -3 would output both 4 and 19. -3 would go to 4 and 19, and so we wouldn't consider that a function in that direction at least. So if we think of x as the input and y as the output, and we want to talk about the domain and range, we can say that the domain is the set of x values, -4, -3, -2. We don't need to write -3 again, so we'll just skip that and write -1. Then we can say that the range is the set of outputs, in this case y values, -8, 4, -14, 19, and 0. Now if we look at this for part C, it says to think of y as the input and x as the output. In this case, and it says just to talk about the domain and range first. So if y is input and x is the output, then the domain would be the set of y values. So here we'd have -8, 4, -14, 19, and 0. And the range would be -4, the x values now, -4, -3, -2, and -1 would be the x values that we could get out of that if we thought of y as the inputs. By the way, this is some foreshadowing to some Math 111 topics, but if we think of y as the input and x as the output, then we call that the inverse relationship of the original, where we think of x as the input and y as the output. It's a standard thing to think of it backwards that we do all the time as we move forward in mathematics. So this is not just relegated to this specific conversation that we're having today. Okay, so part D says, thinking in this way with y as the input and x as the output, determine if x is a function of y. So here we're saying if y is the input, we have -8 is a y value, only goes to -4. We have 4 as a y value, only would output the x value of -3. The y value of -14 would only output -2. The y value of 19 would only output the x value of -3, and the y value of 0 would only output the x value of 1. So we'd say x of y is a function. Each y value only goes to a single x value. Right? Each particular y value only goes to its own particular x value. All right, that's it for this. That is the answer to this now you try problem. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.